All right. Happy Monday, everyone. Glad to see you all join us today. Hope everyone had a nice weekend, nice Mother's Day weekend. And we are looking forward to getting into our round two when it comes to financial planning foundations. And so today we're going to be talking about getting organized and what your personal financial statements might include and what they might look like.
Yes, sir.
So, as a reminder, this is just part of our ongoing series. We start every webinar with this. We've got our Bear Facts Friday, which comes out once a week. It's kind of our quick hits, including big events of the week, a little bit of perspective about what's going on, and then some wisdom as well. So we hope you've been enjoying those. And then these are the past webinars that we've done to date. We're doing them every other Monday at this time at noon. And all of this is saved on our Bear Facts page on our website. So if you weren't able to join us live, or if you want to go back and re-listen, or hey, you might even want to share it with a friend or a loved one, please feel free. All of this content that we're putting together is available on our website. And so we also like to just reiterate what we're talking about through these ongoing series. And it's something that we call your financial success matrix. And what that looks like is this pyramid. Hopefully, I see some familiar faces who are logging on right now. This looks familiar, but as you know, it consists of three parts, including advanced planning, your investments, and your financial planning foundations. But we really need to remember to look at this from the bottom up. So you've got to start by laying a strong foundation before you can really commit to getting into the investments. And once that's taken care of, then you can get into more sophisticated or structured advanced planning strategies. And that's all dependent, obviously, on your personal situation. And this just reiterates what we went through on the last slide. So the foundations, our investments, and the principles and philosophy that go along with it, and then advanced planning. And so with our webinar series, we're taking each one of those three blocks one at a time and then just repeating them. So this is now the second part of financial planning foundations, which we're excited to introduce to you. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kenny here.
Yeah, Mark, appreciate the intro. So yeah, getting organized. The first step to really getting organized is knowing what you have. And I can't tell you, I see a lot of people on the call here that most of y'all are the more organized, which is why you're probably joining the call and on top of things. But so often people have no idea, what they have, what they've invested in. And I can tell you that honestly, you might think that being organized is it is a foundation of financial planning, but you may think to yourself, it's more appropriate for those getting started and making sure that you know where your assets and liabilities are and so forth. But I can tell you that really the more success you have, the more wealth you created, are some of the more you have more things, are easier to get to lose track of. I mean, I can tell you a CPA who we work with, who's a client of ours, has made so many different investments through the years and just has, how much did I put in that? What was that worth? Is that still a viable investment? And just really sitting down, taking the time to think, what is it that I own? Most everybody, we know what, is in our bank account or what maybe is in our 401k, but there may be other, alternative investments you made. Your kids' 529 plans. What do you have as far as your debt on your mortgages? What do you have in terms of, as I mentioned, other private investment, your cars, your jewelry, your, what your house is worth? Do you have any rental property? What is the debt you have on that versus the equities? Versus the equity in the property, and you listing on and on, life insurance cash values, and just truly getting an understanding of where you are right now puts you in a much better position to know where you're trying to get to down the road. And that's one thing, at least we try to help our clients with at the front end, sitting it down and talking about not just, your goals, your dreams, what you're trying to get to, but to know where you want to be, you got to know where you are. And that helps tremendously in just helping you organize that data. I think, Mark, you were talking about going, refinancing. We both refinanced recently. I mean, give that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of that for me. I like to think I'm pretty organized when it comes to, the financial stuff here. And I've got it all, saved digitally, and it's all in one place and organized according to how my mind works anyways. But I guess you don't really know until you go through an exercise, right? And so recently we were doing a refinance for our home, and that's where you've got to have access to all this information, all your checking and savings account statements, and any other assets like 401ks that you have. You've got to go out and get recent pay stubs, and you've got to send copies of homeowners insurance, and all these moving parts. That was a really good almost stress test to see if I was on top of things or not, right? Because look, if you're doing something like that, it's kind of a pain anyway. It's not that it's hard, it's kind of a pain. You don't want to do it. But you might think that you're organized, but when push comes to shove, or when you're going through one of those sorts of exercises, is when you really figure out, oh yeah, I've got this all together, or maybe I need to spend a little more time to become more organized, I think. And then Kenny, I did want to hit on one point you just made, which I thought was a great one. This is so relevant for anybody. I mean, this topic, when you and I were brainstorming what should we talk about next as far as a foundation, we threw out this idea and almost both kind of chuckled at it at first because it seemed so elementary. But the more we thought about it, we said, well, wait a minute. I mean, whether you've got $50,000 to your name or whether you're worth 10 million, what we've included in today's presentation is just so appropriate, no matter where you are in terms of your professional career or your wealth building personally or anywhere in between. So that's why I really, really like this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just kind of going back and hitting on what you just said in terms of getting a loan. We've all, I mean, everybody on this call I know has gotten loans and has a mortgage or has had a mortgage at one time. And, amazing, just you ask for something and then they ask for something else. And then they ask for even more clarification and just going on and on. And if you're not in a position where you're, organized, you can miss out on being able to even refinance, as an example, at the way rates are right now. I mean, we have a client that, I guess you'd say relatively disorganized and is having that trouble, getting the necessary documentation needed to get approved for the loan at the rate that's going to save them really, close to about $1,000 a month. So, I mean, it is important. Most of the time it doesn't make a difference until, and this is true, we talk about, I feel like I said this about almost everything. It doesn't matter until it really does and you need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it becomes important.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, another interesting bit of perspective there could result in missed opportunity then. I've never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
What about some ideas of what we talk about? Well, what do we have? But also, well, where is it? I mean, that's the next logical step after you understand what you've got. And this is something that anyone who's a client of ours, they've gone through with us because it's really one of the things that we ask for even prior to our very first meeting. And so, think about your situation right now. You might have a safe that sits in the closet of your bedroom or down in the basement. You might have it, some of these documents tucked in your desk drawer with Fido sitting on top of it, maybe shredding some of them. Could be in just a cardboard box somewhere. Or maybe it's with an advisor that you work with, or we have certainly a lot of these things for our clients, or it could be on the cloud or any number of places. But you really, as you're considering what do I have, also consider where do I keep that information and what is going to allow me to access it most readily when I need it, and how do I go about making sure that it's secure, whether digitally or in hard form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kenny, do you have any thoughts on that, either maybe about how you do it or how we've seen people be successful with this aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the best way I've seen it is either creating some sort of folder. How I do it is both ways. So I have a hard physical copy that we keep in a locked, safe in our house, and then also have everything stored digitally through a share file system. And that way it's pretty easily accessible when I need it. If anything ever happened to the cloud or whatever happens in the cloud disappears, then I've got a physical copy of my important documents, my financial records. I think we're kind of going to I don't want to necessarily jump ahead, but then having everything on one portal. Like, so at Bear Wealth, we can link any account that has an online, for the most part, and an online username and password. We can pull it in and reflect its balance upon, on your client portal. We can also put in non-liquid assets, whether it's real estate. Obviously we're not going to change the value of that every day, but once a year going in and doing that. And that kind of leads into more the next, not just knowing where it is, but knowing really what it is and being able to create that balance sheet.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue. So hopefully, for folks listening right now, you've got the two key takeaways: understanding what you have and understanding where it is, and where you should be keeping it. Those are the two biggest factors to really just even getting started. And here again, whether you've got maybe a little bit of money or a whole lot of money, it applies to both of you and anywhere in between. But that leads into what Kenny was talking about, which is now understanding your personal financials and putting together personal financial statements. And so I'll start with this one and hand off, Kenny. But starting with the balance sheet. Every company out there has a balance sheet, but so do many families, or if you don't, you should really consider putting one together. And if you're not familiar with what a balance sheet is, it's essentially taking into account what are your assets or what do you own, and then what do you owe other people, your liabilities, and comparing the two. And so when you're considering putting together your own balance sheet for you or for your family, here's some examples of assets that you would want to account for. Certainly any cash that you have on hand, or an emergency fund, or checkings and savings accounts, all those sorts of things. Any investments that you have, whether they be stocks and bonds, or it could be real estate, could be in your company retirement plan. But also don't forget things like personal property. Some people, they've got a lot of really nice jewelry. Some people might be art collectors, or maybe you've got either just your daily cars, even though they're a depreciating asset. Maybe you also have some sort of rare collector's cars. So think about all of these things that you might have that have value. That's what you should be accounting for on the assets side of your balance sheet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just know that Mark, obviously, with his car collection, it takes him a long time to value those assets.
How often do you think I should revalue all my rare cars?
I mean, I don't know. You do it weekly. I think that's a little extreme.
Weekly,
yeah. Liabilities is, anything you owe debt on, mortgage, credit cards, student loans, anything that you got to pay out. I mean, so I think from a personal standpoint, it's something to update one time a year, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I do. And so what is my net worth? I mean, because I think it's interesting to know, and let's revalue that, once a year. Now, if you're a business owner, I have trouble kind of valuing the business necessarily, but actually that leads me to, remind anyone here, we've got a new tool that we have that's a business valuation tool we can use and can send you and can walk through it with you, just as an FYI. That's something that we have that if anyone has an interest in. But doing that one time a year, looking at your accounts, to value, what do you owe, what is the debt you owe, and then just seeing your net worth as you track that over the course really of your the rest of your lifetime, at least during your working years. I don't know that necessarily once you are retired, it's quite as important, but it's something worth knowing. I think that gives you a peace of mind. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Where do I stand? Some years will be good, some years will be bad, but it's just a big picture overall. Myself, the Kenny, the Bear family, what is our net worth? Mark's, what is his net worth? Whoever else is out there, and looking at that and seeing what it is and updating it one time a year, I think is a useful exercise.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Is looking at that once a year, more frequently if you want to, but at least once a year, because what it also can do is help you uncover whether, how should I say, I guess, whether you're telling yourself the truth or something like that. And what I mean by that is, well, you might say, well, we pay down our credit card every single month. We don't carry a balance. Well, if you're tracking something like this, and what we'll talk about next, you might uncover whether that's the truth or not. Or you might say, well, we save X amount of dollars per year and put that into our investment accounts. if you're tracking that, then you can really see how effective you are with what your plan is, or with what you think that your plan is. So great idea there to look at that at least once a year. And it doesn't, when we talk about these things, some people have this idea in their mind that it's really complex, or it's got to be super, super detailed. And, sometimes it does require that, or you do need that. But oftentimes you don't really have to go overboard with this sort of stuff. I mean, you really can start with just the basics and build it out from there. So don't think of this as some, majorly daunting task just to even get started. I mean, you could sit down at your kitchen table for an hour, and I think you'd be shocked at the progress that you could make, even on a sheet of paper at a table.
Definitely.
So that's the balance sheet, and then the next one is your income statement. And so here again, our goal with putting this content together today, especially, was to really kind of keep it to the basics, to the bare minimum, because there's no need to overcomplicate things. But when we think of your family's income statement or your budget, those two can in a sense be used interchangeably, but they can serve separate purposes as well. Think of it on a high level like this. So this is how you might break it down. Take whatever your household gross income is. If you earn 100,000 a year and your spouse earns 300,000 a year, well, your gross income 400,000. Boom, there it is. Subtract out what you pay in taxes and what you set aside into any retirement plans that you may have. And then also consider what you might put aside for things like employee benefits. So whether it's your health insurance that is through work, or whether you contribute to an HSA, all that sort of thing. Once you net that out, then you'll really understand your take-home pay. And I'm sure that's the number that we're all most familiar with, is like, what do I actually get direct deposited into my account every other week, or however often you're paid. And then from there, you should be able to understand your expenses. And that includes both your fixed expenses and your variable expenses. And I'm sure you're all familiar with what that is, but in a nutshell, your fixed expenses are that's what's there, and that's what you can depend on having to pay every single month. So, in my family, that includes our mortgage, that includes, the check that goes to daycare for my son, and a couple other things. And then on variable expenses, that, as the name implies, it can vary from month to month, but also things that you know are going to be there. So your groceries, your utilities, going out to eat, going on vacation, whatever the case may be. It varies from family to family. But get your take-home pay, back out your expenses. That should leave you with what Kenny and I refer to often as, well, what's left over? And for some people, it might net to zero exactly, especially if you're a really strict budgeter, let's say. Or for some people, that what's left over number could be anything. Could be a couple hundred, could be a couple $1,000s a month that is now still there. And if that's the case,
positive or negative.
Well, yeah, I guess it could be negative too. That's that's where we can help.
Right. Yeah. I think, Mark, I think if you try to think about yourself and your family in the terms that you would if you were a business owner, and some people, own a business, and someone here, do not. But what is the bottom line? Like, what am I making? You can have a great business that brings in tons of revenue, right? You can have a business or be a person, a CEO of a major corporation, to make $1 million a year. That's great top line, but bottom line might look terrible because you're spending every dollar you come in. Or you could be otherwise somebody that has a really small business that is employees, and neither one of you are making great money, but you've got a very profitable enterprise because you're able to somehow sock away a lot of money per year. I like to think of it as, the profit of the business, quote, the business, meaning you and your spouse and your family, is what you're actually saving and what you're able actually to put away. And what is that as a percentage of the overall revenue? And is that good? Because all our business owner clients know at the end of the year, what they make, right? You got to pay taxes on it. It comes down. In terms of an individual, it's not quite the same. You're paying taxes on what comes in, regardless of whether you saved it, you made it, profit, loss, what have you. But thinking of it in those kind of terms can, really not thinking of it, but evaluating it in those terms one time a year or two times a year is another exercise that just puts you in a better position financially from an understanding standpoint, knowing what you have, knowing what you're putting away. I think, Mark, you mentioned that too, setting sort of that savings plan, that savings goal, and then are you living up to that? Are you actually doing that, or is that just something you said you do and it never happens?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a way to keep yourself accountable is by putting pen to paper or in an Excel spreadsheet or whatever you might use to really get a sense for what's going on under the hood here.
Yeah, yeah. So thinking about just as you have, what you make, what you save, what you spend, is there anything left over? And that's money that you should, in my opinion, save it again, unless there's something you've been planning for. So it almost should net out at zero at the end of every year. Now some people's income is less steady, right? You might get a big bonus. You might get you might get paid in different commission period. So it's not like I'm going to save it. It's going to be flatlined and I know what I'm going to make every single year. So therefore I know what I can save. But at the end of the year is where you maybe think about, well, let's zero that out and I should save what's left over, or I determine at the beginning of the year what's left over we'll have this big trip with, or whatever it may be. I mean, it all goes back to really kind of setting goals, and whether it can be savings goal or retirement goal or whatever it is, and then tracking, are you meeting that goal? I think one of my favorite quotes or quote I use is a goal without a plan is just a wish. And so if you put it down and you have a plan to achieve that, it becomes more likely to be achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What? I feel like we're each other's hype men here. We're like, in the background.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, again, this is a financial planning foundation topic. I know we've said it, but that is so relevant to anyone, regardless of where you are in this process of financial planning. And so hopefully some of these 4 areas that we gave you to think about today, just put a few minutes of thought into it. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering, especially not to get started with it. So if you haven't started, commit to even 30 minutes, an hour to get started. And if it's something that you have done before, an exercise that you've gone through, hey, look back and see, what it was then versus what it is now. And where did you think that you would be? And what's that difference there? It's just a great thing that you can do to help put you in an even stronger financial position than you already are.
Yeah. I mean, I can't agree more. I mean, nothing we said today is like earth shattering as far as I've never heard that, but it's like the first steps. I mean, you start with knowing what you've got, what you're trying to do, what your balance sheet looks like. And then too, like that's where advisors really help. We can help you with that first part, right? I mean, obviously we can. That second start, well, where do I put it? What's the smartest thing? Is it going to 401k, a Roth IRA? That's kind of the next level of planning and making sure not just your balance sheet looks right, but it's the money's going in the right places as well. So what, number one issue affluent, wealthy individuals, successful people have is, what do I do with my money? Where do I put my money? Not, how do I make sure I have any at all? It's making sure putting in the right places. And that's where advisors really come in handy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's about all we've got for this week, unless any closing thoughts you wanted to add, Kenny.
I think that's it. That's it.
All right. Yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Just as a reminder, this is what our Bearfax page looks like. This webinar will be up there shortly, so you can review it for playback. And then, as always, if there's anything that you need help with as it relates to what we've talked about today in particular, feel free to reach out to us. Give us a call or shoot us an email, and we'd be happy to talk with you. And the same offer goes out to anyone that you care about or anyone in your network as well. But we appreciate you partaking in this financial planning foundations topic, and we look forward to our next webinar in a couple of weeks, which we'll be talking about investments again.
Back and roll. Everybody have a great week.